Welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast with your host, Brett Bovin. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy the show.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Brett Bovin. This is the show for all hunters and outdoorsmen alike. Deucer, I'm sorry, I missed that part. Yep, there we go. That's my fault, Deucer. That's my fault. And real quick side note, this show just started and we're already at 10 live viewers. So I know everyone's not here to see my pretty face. They're all here to see our guests. So Brandon, it seems like you're a popular guy. So damn, we're already up to 11. So Brandon, kudos to you, man. You're killer, man. Anyways, this show for all hunters, outdoorsmen alike. We get to share stories. We get to gather around the electronic campfire, like to call it here, and learn stories, strategies, and get to know each other more. If you have any questions, comments, or anything like that, feel free to drop them in the comment section. Our deucer of the show is going to pop them up in the screen for us here during the show. We also have a saying on the show: put your quarter in the slot machine. What I simply mean by that is to help share the show. I strongly believe hunting is a dying sport. It's a dying lifestyle. And all we ask everyone out there that's watching is to help us get a new friend. That's all we ask. And help us share the word. That's all we ask. Anyways, I'm a little flustered if you haven't told so far. So I'm going to say my rant at the end of the show. And I'm going to leave it at that. So make sure to stay all the way tuned to the end of the show. Anyways, we all know I hate doing the intro. It's stupid. It's the same crap every day. But record on the slot machine. Use code GP10. Get 10% discount off Gilly Puck products. Also, check out MAGNUS Broadheads and Grizz Media because they're going to be launching us into next year. Looking forward to that. We're getting ready to plan something here in October and November, working with Jesse. Been good friends with him now with Tax, and great guy. Can't wait to work with him. Anyways, enough of me rambling. I know everyone's out there just like, Brett, shut the fuck up, man. Let's get the guest in here. So enough of me chit-chatting. Sir, let's bring our guest in for tonight. I think everyone wants to watch him. What is up, brother?
What's going on, man?
Oh, man. No, like I said, the show just started, and it's like everyone was waiting. It's like, oh, we get to see Brandon. Why is that Brett guy in there? I don't want to see that fucker. Well, brother, for anyone that doesn't know you, can you give a little background about yourself?
Yeah, sure, man. I'm Brandon Sawyer. I'm from the mountains of western North Carolina. I grew up hunting here ever since I was little, hunting, small parcels of private land all the way to our big mountain game lands that we have out here. Kind of everything in between. But I really caught the bug for bow hunting and stuff probably like in middle school. My dad's buddy hit us up probably like in April of that year and said they were going on a out-of-state hunting trip to Kentucky on some public land, but it was bow only. And we didn't have bows at the time and stuff. And Dad and I talked about it, and we were like, let's give it a shot. So we actually went out to Bass Pro Shop, man, and we got some old Parker bows. For those who know what a Parker bow is, I don't even think they make bows anymore. But we got some Parker bows and stuff, and I spent that summer, shooting 20, 30, 40 yards, watching DVDs, watching Night and Hail, all that, just trying to prep for this trip and everything. And that's when I really was just diving into hunting. But the reason I caught the bug that year, I think we went to Kentucky, ended up just being like an awesome hunt. I was used to these North Carolina woods, and it's really kind of hard to get on deer here. And we went out to Kentucky, man, and like, just short little story, my very first morning out there, I had never hunted this area, never been there. We got there the night before, stayed in a hotel, and like that morning, we go into this public land, and the guy that I'm with is like, hey man, this flat down here, it's a good rut spot. A lot of does go into here. He's like, get out of the truck, get your climber, get your bow. This is before like Onyx or, any map system. And he's like, walk 200-300 yards in that direction, shine your light in a tree, climb it, and start calling. So I did that morning, long story short, ended up having just an absolute monster walk under me for, at the time, at least a big 8. Completely missed it, freaking out. That was my first scope of buck fever, I guess. He came like perfect broadside, 15 yards, and I pull back on him and just shoot right over his back. I don't even think I looked in the peep sight. But like from that day on, like the rest of the hunt was awesome and stuff. I didn't tag a deer, but like I got hooked right there. So that's kind of like the story of me getting into hunting, I guess. You know, from then on, I've taken every opportunity I can to go anywhere I can to bow hunt. So it's kind of where I'm at now. I hunt every chance I get.
Well, it looks like you've learned from your mistakes, and looking at the wall, and for the listener here, if you could see, make sure you turn it into the video here, because his trophy wall is what, if you want to call it that, is just, oh my gosh, like that one right there with all those amazing stickers and kickers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
All the characteristics on that deer is just beautiful, man.
He's a cool buck. He's a good one.
It's okay. It's just
all
whatever. It's all right.
Hopefully one day I'll see another one like that.
I did forget to mention here at the bottom of the hour, anyone out there watching, you want to call into the show, we'll pop up a number here so everyone can call in, gives everyone a chance to call in and talk to us. Well, Brandon, when I first missed my deer, I've told this on the story before, but I'll make it quick. Like I shot right underneath this doe, and I'm starting to cry. My dad comes down there, picks up my arrow, and starts climbing up my tree stand because I was in a ladder. And he's like, "Brett, why are you crying?" I'm like, "Dad, I missed that deer. I was practicing so hard, and I wanted that deer." And he's like,
Right.
First off, he was like, "That's deer hunting, and that's bow hunting. So get used to it. You're gonna miss, and get used to it." So I went back home. I sucked it up, kept practicing even more, and then like a week later, I shot like this 4-point type buck, and it was an amazing rush. And to be able to share that with my dad, and like I said, I think everyone has that one deer that's going to stand out with them the most, that they'll remember from the morning of that day all the way up to the like 2 days after that fact or something like that.
Oh yeah.
I think no matter how old you get, you're going to remember that one story. And for me, my number one buck is that one I share with my dad. My second favorite hunt is the one my biggest deer I shot a couple years ago. And my third favorite one is going to be whether my daughter or my son gets theirs, and that might jump up to like 1.2 underneath the first one with my dad. I don't think anyone thinks it's going to beat that, but
right.
It's those. That's why I love hunting on top of it all, is because you get to share. We're not out there just to kill these deer. Don't get me wrong, that's an amazing adrenaline rush. That's awesome. But it's after the fact, or that you've tagged your deer, because that part itself is hard. But then able to share it with your friends and your family and live that story days on, and go around campfire and just drink a beer and like, oh man. And you get happy as the guy that shot the deer, but your friends and your family, they are more excited than you are seeing how excited you got about that deer. Like, let's talk about it, man.
Oh yeah. Dude, that's what it's all about, man. Honestly, like it's the camaraderie. Like the hunting trips, like we go out of state, and it's all about the camaraderie, man. That after the hunt, just getting back and sharing the stories from that night or that day of what you saw. Somebody shot one, you're tracking it together, like you said, having a beer together, and that's what it's all about, man. Sharing the moments with everybody. That's what makes hunting.
I want to ask, how do you handle adversities through hunting?
It's a grind, like, you got to try to stay positive. Really, I think, honestly, keeping your mind straight and just staying positive, staying on the grind and sticking with what you know. And really just going and never settling too. So, when you run into obstacles or adversities while you're hunting and stuff, one thing we always say, like when we go out of state and we go to new pieces of wood, is never settle. You always just got to keep grinding and go until you find exactly what you're looking for. Never settle and just sit up. And that's how you're going to be successful. And a lot of that has to, and I'm not saying I'm in the best shape, but staying in shape. When we go out of state, or even like where I live, I mean, we're putting on miles a day and stuff. So, I mean, just really trying to just stay after and grind.
How do you deal with the emotional toll of taking the deer's life? I know we're kind of going down deep conversation here, but It's
Yeah,
something
no, I
that
think
most
that's
people don't
awesome.
think
So, like,
of.
I respect the heck out of animals. I especially respect the heck out of whitetails. And I mean, a lot of deer, like, especially from like where I live and stuff, I try to target certain bucks, right? And, that mature buck moves into an area and I target that buck. You almost feel like you know that buck by the time you shoot him, unless you shoot him early season or something. If it comes November and you've been watching them all season, you feel like you know this deer. So when you get up to them, I mean, they can be very emotional, like for real. I've gotten emotional on quite a few deer. And you just got to respect every bit of the hunt, though, and every bit of that deer. Like, one thing I like doing, especially if I'm by myself, if I shoot a deer and I go get on it before my buddies are there and stuff, I'll sit down and I'll have a moment, like put my phone down for a minute and just really soak in that moment. You got to respect the animal.
Right. Yeah, I think when I shot fish hook a couple years ago, it was first off an adrenaline rush, like, oh man, we just shot that amazing deer, and it was amazing high and all hyped up about it all. And then we're getting them back home, we're gutting them out and all that stuff. Get a little sad because you're like, man, the book's closed on that deer. Now you kind of feel lost in a way after the fact. You're like, man, what do I do now? Like, I just shot that deer. I was after this year, and
Yep.
I don't know what to do with myself.
Now what do we do? Yeah, no,
Exactly.
I hear you, man. Yep, I'm right there with you.
Well, I'm not sure if you answer this part of it, but do you see yourself hunting more public land or private land or a mix of both?
Definitely more public land, just because, like, when we go out of state and stuff, we're typically hunting public land. Like where I live, definitely 90% public land. Definitely not against hunting private land by any means, though. If we get a piece of private, I'm all over that. But, I think the difference with me and my buddies with private land compared to a lot of other folks is that when we get a piece of private land, we try to treat it like public land, basically. So we want that element of surprise on a big buck. So we're going in there, we're scouting the property, we're trying to figure these deer out, and then we're mobile on that property. So a lot of times we're bouncing sets all over, depending on the wind, depending on where the deer go. So we like to hunt that property like public. If it's a piece of property, because you can bait in North Carolina, that we put bait out, we typically don't hunt over the bait. That's more for just inventory and trail camera pictures and keeping our does around. We don't like to hunt over them, especially I don't really like hunting over on most properties, because what I've found, like growing up, hunting little pieces and putting corn piles out, you get piles of does that come in, young bucks, and then I can't tell how many times you'll see big bucks skirting the pile of corn. Like, they know what's up. And not just that, I'm not a big fan of hunting over corn, because the whole time I feel like does always come in first, and we're bow hunting, so they're 20 yards from you, and you're in the tree and you can't move the whole entire hunt because they're going to feed there until dark. And then the buck comes and you're like, oh man, then you can't move. And you get the old bitch doe and she starts stomping. You just got to fawn with her. And so I got over that. I started taking those pieces of private land and doing like mock scrapes and stuff. And I think the mock scrapes are what really triggers the big bucks. And then we would go, with like a mobile setup and set up on that mock scrape. And so he's not coming into a corn pile looking for a hunter, basically, and smelling the whole area. He's coming to hit his scrape. He has no idea we're there, and boom. So a little bit of both, but mainly public. Just because where I live, we have over 500,000 acres worth of public land. So I take advantage of that. And almost every state we hunt, we have public land. And, one thing, since I was little, I'm 35 now, and I've never paid $1 for a piece of property. And I kind of want to stick with that because we have so much public to hunt. I just don't see myself spending, $3,000 on a piece of land when I can just go hunt public for free. It might be a whole lot harder, but it's more fun. I like the challenge.
Well, you also got to challenge yourself as a hunter. Like, you can't just stick in your comfort zone. And I think as all hunters, we have to be willing to push your comfort zones each year. And like, what can I do different? Side note, Scott Clark sent a comment in here. What part of North Carolina are you in?
Oh, Western North Carolina. Western part, so the mountains. So North Carolina is broken up in like 3 sections. So we have like mountains, Piedmont, and then coastal. So we're basically in the western part where the mountains start.
Johnny Nitro. Do you use trail cams while hunting public?
Yes. Yes, I like trail cameras. I've got a few.
Nice.
I mean, to be honest, cell cameras were huge for us in our area. It's very steep where we live. It's very mountainous where we live. And a lot of our big bucks are very high up and usually over a mile up there. So, when cell cams came out, that was a game changer for us because instead of having to hike all the way up these mountains and spend an hour and absolutely be drenched in sweat to check a trail camera, now we can go plug cameras up where we want, cell cameras, and let them soak. And we don't have to worry about going in there and just blowing the whole area up.
Hey, Deucer, can you go back to the comment, and we'll go back to Zachary's? Scott Clark said, Coswell County public land is good. All right, can you go back to Zach's?
Never hunted it.
Zachary Crom? I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Zachary. Matthews or Hoyt? I'm a Matthews guy.
I'm a Hoyt guy. They're all
right. The show's over.
I'm a Hoyt guy, though, dude. Like,
show's over.
Yeah.
The price is wrong, bitch.
No, it's funny because we hunt with a bunch of guys from Florida and stuff. They become real good friends with us, and they're half and half. My buddies are half and half shoot Matthews, half shoot Hoyt. We're always just giving each other hell for fun.
Yeah. Scott Clark, either bow is great. Yeah, either bow is great. You can't go wrong. I will say this, though. Hoyt, it seems like you're paying like a car payment for one of their bows. I'm not going to lie. They're great bows, but you're paying freaking $1 million for a bow, it seems like. Not everyone can be a Matthews fan bow. Yeah, PSE mobile.
Did you see the new Hoyt that just came out with the RX 7 or 8? It's the first bow that's naked to go $2,000 without anything on it.
No, I didn't see that. Actually,
I don't have that bow. I'm just saying, yeah, it's the first bow to be naked over $2,000 or whatever. That's what the guys at our pro shop were telling me. It's a sweet bow, but
I don't know. I had to basically get on my knees and be like, hey, hon, can I get this bow? Can I just want this one? Right. I'll use it for 10 years. And she first off, and this stays between us, okay?
Yeah, right.
I got the bow, but she doesn't know about the $600 new sight.
That's right.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
I don't know the difference. Swap them out.
Exactly. She doesn't know. Anyways, let's backtrack here. All right.
Yeah.
When you were talking about corn,
yeah.
For me, I think baiting, it's kind of this big debate, in my opinion, where it's like, oh, you don't bait, I can bait, this and that. It's like, well, why don't you bait? All the type of debates out there about corn. For me personally, I don't care if people bait. I preferably don't like to bait, only because my hunting style, and it's just kind of the way I was raised and stuff like that, but I like to do as very little out in the woods as possible, where it's like, I like to look at it as my wit versus their wit. How can I beat them on their own game, on their own turf? And I don't do a lot of mock scrapes and stuff like that. I just basically look, what are the patterns like? What can I do to, how am I finding these deer? And where can I set my tree stand up? And then on top of, like I said, you put an arrow through a deer, it's hard enough doing that itself. And to get a deer within 40 minus yards is hard. So when I look at it as, I did all that, and all I did was I studied so much about the property. I studied all about the deer. Now I feel like a little bit more accomplished, in my opinion.
Most definitely. Yeah, most definitely.
Mobile, I don't bait deer. I feed the squirrels and turkeys.
Yeah, right. I've heard that one before. And I don't think there's anything against corn, growing up and stuff. And I mean, we've had properties in the past that are small pieces of property, throw a pile of corn out in one little patch of woods. And I mean, there's some places where that works and stuff. You get neighborhood type deer, you know what I mean? But that's just, I'd much rather take a giant chunk of land and go try to figure the deer out all day long than pour a pile of corn out. That's the way I feel.
Brandon, I'm going to throw you right in the spotlight with this question here, like I'm doing basically the entire show. But everyone says, oh, What are you doing differently to go hunt in public land? Well, I'm going to the places where it seems like nobody else is going. Well, no shit. That's what I think everyone wants to do.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Because everyone seems to find like these big pieces of property where it's like a public land where it's like, oh, that's like 500 plus acres. I want to go way back here. All right.
Right.
Everyone, because of all these podcasts now and stuff like that and YouTube, everyone seems to be kind of going into that same trend. What are you doing to get away from people or other hunters? I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you're trying to seclude yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, a lot of hunters are going deeper now, and they're trying to get to those deep spots. If we're talking about just North Carolina, there's a huge difference because, like North Carolina, our public land is extremely steep. So we can get away from most hunters. The guys that actually take the initiative to go hunt our public land, they are going deep, and there's not many people that are doing it. It's very steep. I mean, like, for instance, if you like walk a mile in Kentucky, it might take you 20 minutes. To walk a mile in our mountains might take you over an hour, and most people don't want to do that, especially to bow hunt. So for our woods, I really do. I get far off the trails. I get very high up too. A lot of our big mature bucks, they get very high up. I think one thing too, like where I live, a lot of the mature bucks, they stay up high because of thermals. And I think a lot of hunters get screwed up and they don't read the thermals when going in, especially to an evening hunt. They just have a spot they think they're going to hunt and they go straight up to it. And they usually, typically, most people out here don't see deer because while they're on their way up, that buck is super high up. Thermals are pulling straight up to them and they don't blow. They don't do anything. They get up out of their bed and they peace out. So reading thermals in the mountains, I think, makes a big difference on why I see a lot of deer too, because I always try to take that into factor. If I'm going up the mountain and I'm hunting this buck that's directly up, I'm not going to walk straight up to him. I'm going to go around the mountain, figure out which way the wind direction is, come around to where my thermals aren't pulling up to him, and then drop back off the backside on him. Here, we don't have to worry about it that much, though. If we're talking about like out of state, like if we're going somewhere else to hunt, it's a lot of scouting. I think, I try to scout areas that are very deep, that get really nasty, get really gnarly, get really thick. If you see a real thick area, a gnarly area, go through it, and hopefully there'll be like an opening or somewhere you can hunt in there that other people are going to overlook. Stuff like that. During the rut, a lot of people overlook, and a lot, like when we hunt Kentucky, I've got a certain spot that is extremely overlooked by most hunters because it doesn't have buck sign in it. It doesn't have historical buck sign in it. It usually never has buck sign, but it has does. And so during the rut, you're hunting does. And so once you find those doe bedding areas, you're hunting those. And a lot of people overlook these areas because they don't see scrapes, they don't see rubs and stuff like that. I will say, so like where we live, one way I do definitely get away from a lot of people is we have what's called rhododendrons and mountain laurels up here, and they are gnarly, dude. It is like a freaking jungle. So they are twisted in and out, and most people see them and they ignore them. They never even try to attempt to go through them. Well, that's where a lot of your big bucks are. So when I see rhodo thickets, I'm diving in them. And I mean, it sucks. Me and my buddies, we go out to this public land and we scout it. And I'll be honest, it sucks. Like, you get caught up in these little jungles, basically. But you get deep enough in them and you find little pockets where you're able to hunt. That's where the deer are at, and that's where they travel. So we're really just trying to find those overlooked spots like that, like going through the rhodos instead of just saying, nope, not going, not touching that. It's too hard to go in, kind of thing.
Chad, if you're still watching, I saw your comment there. We'll come back to that here in a second. Brandon, about thermals, can you break that down a little bit more of how you're reading that and understanding that more and hunting it properly?
Yeah, sure. So like with thermals, so deer, like thermals, when the sun starts rising, so like in the mornings, for instance, when it's still dark, your thermals are dropping. So they're actually, your scent and your thermals are dropping low. When that sun comes up, like around here, I guess it depends on the time of year, but once that sun comes up and it's been up for like an hour and a half or two, your thermals are pulling straight up. And when your thermals pull up the mountains, your scent's pulling up with them. And that's why a lot of these mature bucks stay up high. They stay up as high as they can because they're catching all the thermals coming up to them. So that's basically what thermals are. And you've got to be able to read them in the mornings and in the evenings. In the evenings, when that sun drops, your thermals will start dropping. So like when that gray light starts coming, right as that sun goes over the mountains, your thermals start dropping. So it's a tricky game to play. It really is. It takes a lot of time to try to figure that out, because a lot of times you're hunting on the side of a mountain. So you got to figure out, all right, what time is this deer hopefully coming through in the evening? Should I sit below the trail or above the trail, depending on what time he's coming out? Because if you're above him and he comes out and it's almost dark, your thermals are dropping to him. You see what I'm saying? If it's right at dark and he's coming down and you're below him up in a tree, your thermals are going down behind you. A good tactic that we like to use a lot, and you can use this almost anywhere with thermals. A lot of times your thermals will pull down into like drainages or draws or ditches and stuff. So like if you're hunting a finger that's going up a mountain and there's a draw like on the right or left side, a lot of times we like to sit on the edges with the wind in our face going down that draw, because it actually pulls your thermals down in that draw. And you can sit there and throw milkweed and watch it. It'll literally just drop down and it'll pull down in there. So there's a lot of thermals, man. They're tricky. And the big bucks, they've figured it out, and that's why they get as high as they can. The higher you go on these mountains, I keep my mouth shut a little bit, but the higher you go on these mountains, the bigger bucks you're going to find, for sure.
I'll make this comment. We'll come back to your question there, Chad. We look at these whitetail deer, and don't get me wrong, we think that they're very smart, intelligent animals. I said this on another episode, but at the same time, we kind of think they're stupid. Like, oh, it's just a deer. I'm just going to go out there, hunt. Oh, they're kind of stupid. No, they're really not. Because they're all they are. They are designed and engineered to evade everything.
Yeah, to survive.
And they have 3 cents to do that.
Yep.
Chad Madomo, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Chad. How'd your elk hunt compare to your whitetail hunts?
That's a great question. So I went on my first elk hunt this year to Colorado, or not this year, last September. Hunted some public land in Colorado and ended up getting a bull. And I'll be honest, I love whitetail hunting and I'm addicted to whitetail hunting, but there is nothing like getting on top of a mountain and the sun comes up and you hear an elk bugling. Like, to me, being from the East Coast and stuff, that's hard to beat. I love whitetail hunting. That's a tough question, man. If elk hunting, if I lived in Colorado, we might be having a different podcast. I might be talking about elk hunting, but unfortunately, I live on the East Coast.
When I considered moving to Colorado, when I was in college and I was still single, I was like, Colorado is the state where I want to go to. I got whitetail deer. You get basically a whole bunch of animals that you can go hunt, and Colorado was up there at the time.
Yeah.
PSE mobile hunter Brandon, what are your early scouting routines? You scout early spring, summer. You mainly scout for bedding in the mountains, and is there agricultural lower areas?
So like when I go out to scout, we don't have a lot of ag, like basically none where I hunt, at least. It's all just big, gigantic hardwood patches. We don't have like any food plots or ag. We have like a few clear cuts and stuff like that. But when I'm going out to scout, number one is bedding for sure. I am 100%. My first thing I'm focused on is bedding. And so a lot of times, so say I'm taking a new piece of land and I'm going to go and I'm going to try to figure it out early season. And I go throughout the whole year. But if I take a block, the first thing I'm going to do is get on my phone, and I like to e-scout. And for those who have Onyx, they've got the leaf off imagery now. So I use that to my advantage because we have all the rhododendron and laurel thickets, and they stay green year round. So you can actually see those patches. So that's what I like to look for, is rhodo and laurel patches very high up. So once I go up there, say I pick an area, I find bedding, I dive into those rhodos, into those laurels. That's typically where I find beds all over the place. So that's where I start. But then from there, I branch off of the bedding. And on the mountains, a lot of times what you see are side hill trails. That's what a lot of the deer, they side hill. So they're not going straight up and down, they side hill. So once you find the beds, then I'm side hilling these trails, the main trails, out to the edge of these thickets. So where the laurels and the rhodos meet the hardwoods, right there on that edge, that's where I'm going to spend most of my time scouting and trying to find scrapes. A lot of our scrapes, if you're in a bedding area that has bucks right on the edges, you're going to find scrapes. And they love to scrape right below laurels and rhododendrons. So, depending on the time of year, my favorite time of year, I'd say, to actually scout this type of stuff is right after season, for the fact that I can go in there and I can see the existing sign from that season. So I can see where the scrapes are and see where the rubs are. And then what I do is I like to keep these scrapes open year round. So even if it's March, I will find that scrape on the edge. I'm going to go ahead. I always have a walking stick with me just because it's super steep. And I'll go ahead and rip that scrape up. And that's going to be usually my focus point on my trail cameras. I'll usually put them right there on the edges. And then basically from the scrapes, within 50 to 75 yards, you're going to have more than likely a feed tree. Most people on here probably know what a feed tree is, but I'm not just looking for acorns dropping. I'm looking for caps that are busted up, poop all around, because typically if it's a feeding area, they're staying in that area, and they're usually is poop, which actually brings me to something. I'll bring it up in a minute. But anyway, and then basically the leaves look like turkeys have been in there. So the leaves are all rustled up. That's a feed tree. And typically, if I can find bedding in that side hill trail, and there's a couple of scrapes there, I know there's been bucks in the area, and then there's a feed tree, that's what I'm looking for right there. And so, all right, now we've got the whole picture. We got bedding, scrapes, feed tree. What I do, I don't really hunt the feed trees as much as I hunt the scrapes. Almost 90% of the time I'm hunting scrapes. The reason being, all you guys know, deer are very nocturnal, especially mature bucks. They're moving like barely any during daylight, especially in these big mountains. So a lot of times back in the past, I'd hunt the feed trees, right? And I'd sit on them. The does would come in, the little bucks would come in, and I can't tell you how many times I'd look to my right, 80 yards, and right on the edge where that scrape's at is the big buck. And that's kind of like his little staging area until it's dark. And I'm not saying, and I've shot deer over feed trees before, but I think you have a better opportunity to catch him on that scrape coming out of bedding before he gets to the feed tree. Not only that, it almost goes back like to a corn pile. I've hunted feed trees before, and you've got does all around you the whole time, right? And they're all antsy. So I'd rather those does go by me, hit the scrape, the little bucks go by me, and then when it's time for that big buck to come out, I've already picked out a tree that's broadside. When he's side hilling coming through, I'm already in a tree to shoot him broadside before he gets to the feed tree. I think you have a huge advantage doing that. The closer to bedding you get, the better opportunity you're going to get in these mountains, at like 100%. And it goes the same with, morning hunting too. So not only can you hunt that in the evening for them coming out of bedding going, but in the mornings, you want to hunt those edges too, catching them coming from feeding, going back into beds. And so right there on those edges, hunt the scrapes. I mean, that's what I'm looking for when I'm scouting these mountains. The main thing, so when it comes to scrapes too, one thing you guys got to really look for are licking branches. If there's not a good licking branch above it, I typically ignore that scrape. You call it a licking branch and all, but most bucks, they're not licking the branch. They're actually rubbing their head, basically their face and their head in there, and they're putting their preorbital glands all in the branches, and they're sitting there, and then they have forehead glands also between their antlers. So that's the main thing, is finding a really good licking branch. If I find a scrape and it doesn't have a licking branch, I'll walk right by it. So that's typically how I'm scouting. Can
you pop up Brandon's comment there real quick? It was right before his. I think it was Daniel's that. Oh, Bobby Dewilski, be a man and share an Onyx pin.
I know. Yeah, man. He knows everywhere I hunt anyway.
Go back to
That's my boy there, man. I call him. He'll come help me get a deer out anytime.
Oh, nice.
We went to
Daniel Wilson.
That's actually where we hunted the most, was in college. We went to App State together, and me and that dude did a lot of hunting together.
Oh, nice. Daniel Wilson. Brandon, do you like elk tenderloin versus deer tenderloin?
Elk. I like them both, but man, there's nothing like elk tenderloin.
Oh, I bet.
Shout out to Dan, the guy that just asked that comment. He's the one that got us all hooked up and stuff out there in Colorado.
Oh,
We cooked
nice.
some of that fresh tenderloin that night over the fire. That was hard to beat.
All right, so we're at the point now. I'm gonna pre-warn everyone. I swear, one day I'll learn words. Pre-warn everyone. It's gonna be our first time doing this. Brandon said he's cool with it. A call-in line. So call in here. We're gonna pop the number up here. Call into the show. If we have somebody on and we see somebody else calling, we'll cancel that call and stay so we can keep online with the other guy or woman, and we'll just keep pulling them in. So call into the show here if you want. There's the phone number. I'm excited to see if people want to call in. Brandon, what would you tell someone that wants to come to North Carolina to start preparing for on an archery hunt?
On an archery hunt. If they're coming to hunt our game lands, which are completely different than our private land, because we have like decent private pieces here. But if you're coming to hunt North Carolina game lands, one, make sure you're in very good physical shape, because if you want to find any deer, you're going to be hiking up steep mountains. What else would I say? I think one thing, you've got to keep the grind. Like we talked about earlier, don't get discouraged. Most people that hunt our game lands and are bow hunting our game lands usually don't see any deer. I'll be honest. Like, it is very difficult to get on deer up here. So just prepare for days that you're not going to see anything, but just realize our deer numbers aren't that big, and you're hunting deer that are in gigantic bodies of woods. So you got to stay after the grind, stay after it. Just because you don't see deer for 2 days, the next day, that giant might come hit the scrape. So really just stay after it. And then if you're going to hunt our area, I wouldn't come up here without scouting, because I don't care how good you are at reading maps. I can read a map all day in these mountains and pick out 3 different areas and go scout them, and maybe one of those I have decent deer sign on it. So if you're going to do it, I would take a lot of time in the off season to come and scout, because if you don't scout, man, good luck unless you've got some intel from somebody. It's not easy hunting at all by any means.
How do you involve your friends and family in hunting, and what have you seen the benefits from that?
Yeah, man. So I'll be honest, almost all my friends are deer hunters. We have a lot of deer hunters in this area. And like we talked about earlier, just the camaraderie and stuff. Like my family, my dad's the one that got me into hunting. So my dad and I have done a lot of hunting trips together. Most all of my best friends are good deer hunters. And you make friends deer hunting too, which is super awesome. Like I've got a group of guys from Florida that we hunt with out of state every year. We met one year after me and my buddy killed a couple bucks. And now we're like really good friends. We stay in touch almost every other day. We go on hunts together now. So building that camaraderie, I think is huge. I've got 2 daughters right now. I'm hoping when they get a little older, I'm going to get them into it also. But yeah, I think that's huge, man. Just having a body of friends that are positive with you. And no matter what, like for instance, the other day, my buddy, he just got into bow hunting. Literally, he's probably, 38 or something. He just got into bow hunting. Opening weekend, he shot a buck, and man, it was awesome. So he called me up. He called a couple of our other buddies, and this was his first deer hunting experience, period. And, we met up with him. We tracked it with him, and he was so pumped. He was so excited about it. And that's what it's all about, man. Getting everybody involved, getting your friends involved, and just staying positive about it too, though. Don't be that guy that's just a jerk about, what you're shooting and stuff like that. The buck that guy killed was a 4-point like this. But, dude, we were just as pumped for him to shoot that than a booner. that was a booner to him. It was his first bow kill. So no matter what the situation is, I think if you stay positive, it really helps improve, the community of hunting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Campfire stories.
I guess we're in the campfire story segment now.
Yes.
Brandon, what's one of your funniest or most embarrassing moments hunting?
Oh. Most embarrassing moments hunting.
Or funniest.
That's
either
a
one.
tough one, man. Maybe the other morning when I was by myself. So I was by myself. Nobody was with me, but I was biking into some public land the other morning, and I had my bow in my left hand, and I was biking in just holding my bike with my right hand, and it was pitch dark. I'm going in with like a red light because I don't want to spook the deer, even though I'm a mile away from them. Going over the red light, I started getting some speed going down a hill, and this was like literally last weekend, and I hit a root. And I went flying over the handlebars, through my bow. It's pitch dark, and I got up, and I'm like, making sure no one's looking, even though I know nobody's around. That sucked. I'll tell you that much. Thank God I didn't have a buck come in that morning either, because my bow actually landed on my sights, and I got home and shot, and it was off like a few inches down and to the left. Like my sights had mud caked on it. It was embarrassing at the time. With somebody else, man, I don't know. I can't really think of anything right now.
No, it's okay. My most embarrassing time as a hunter, and I'm not afraid to say, I've said in a couple episodes before.
Yeah.
When I was about 13, so it's my second year hunting, my dad at like 10 years old, when I was at 10 years old, my dad forced me to watch the movie Pumpkinhead. I don't know if you've seen it. It's that old horror movie where they summon this demon, got to kill these certain people. And I'm like, I'm not staying out in the woods in the dark. Fucking pumpkins out there. So next thing I know, of course, it's like an hour, 6 o'clock, right? An hour before that prime time, that golden hour, right? I'm booking it inside the house. So I'm like, I got sunlight. I'm making sure I can see everything. I'm inside the house. My dad can see. He's like, when did you get in? About 6:15. He goes, why? I'm like, because I didn't want Pumpkinhead to get me, Dad. He got mad and just started laughing all at the same time.
That's too funny.
I know. Back to a serious moment here.
Actually, speaking of, though, I did have a story. So, like, when we were little, we had some land in Virginia. It wasn't our land. It was some family friends' land. And we went up there. Do you remember the old little magazines, Reader's Digest or whatever? And they had, like, little stories and stuff in them. So they had, like, a pile of Reader's Digest in this little cabin. And that night, I read an article about all the people getting attacked, like, in maybe California or something, by mountain lions. And I'm probably, like, in 6th grade maybe or something. So that night I sat there and read that, and in my head I'm like, dude, there's mountain lions out here and it's mountainous and stuff. So that next morning, I'm pumped to go hunting. I made it up to the top of that hill, and I don't even know what I saw. It was probably a bobcat or something crossed in front of me. I freaked out, man. Turned around, went right back to the cabin. I think my dad was down there and, like, ended up walking me back up the hill, but it was in my head. I was freaking out. Like, there's mountain lions up here. Like, screw this. They're eating me. But that was pretty embarrassing. Looking back, that was pretty funny.
Deuce here, can we go back to I think it was Dallas? You had a comment there. How do you maintain that positive mental attitude, and how do you overcome frustration after not getting on a buck day 5 of 7 on an out-of-state hunting trip?
I just try to stay as positive as I can, and try to look forward to getting home and getting on bucks at home, basically. So, we've all had that happen where you eat a tag sandwich, you go out of state, and by day 5, if you haven't killed anything and you're grinding every morning, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, hunting all day, barely eating anything, it'll get to you mentally. It's tough. I mean, I've been in situations where I got frustrated, but the older I get, the more I try to just look past that and look forward to when I get home and getting on other deer. Because if you let it get to you, there's nothing. I mean, I don't know. They just get in your head. So you got to try to stay positive. When I was little, you get real frustrated. I'd get real frustrated out there and stuff. But you got to realize that's hunting, man. Especially bow hunting. It's not easy stuff. You don't kill one every single year on these out-of-state trips. So you just got to have fun with the guys that are killing, and don't let your negative experience. Don't have a negative experience, I guess you can say, with the people that have shot something. Just because they killed something, be positive. Go out there, go help them get it and stuff, and don't be a Debbie Downer.
I haven't hunted outside the state of Michigan yet, and Deucer, we'll come back to PSE Mobile Hunters there. Comment there. I get frustrated here in my own state when I'm hunting like right down the road, where it's like, oh man, I just went 2 weeks and I've seen some deer, but I just haven't seen nothing yet. So I'm starting to get pissed. But like you said, I wouldn't take the energy down from everyone else I'm out there hunting with. But you also got to look at it like, well, I'm out here. What have I learned so far out of these 5 days? What have I done possibly wrong? What can I do better with these last 2 days? Find some type of positive with it, and like, you know what? I'm out here hunting still. I'm having fun, and that's the main point about it. And like, as long as you can take some type of experience or learn something from that hunt, even though you didn't get anything, that should be a positive, a moment to stay positive about it all.
I definitely agree with that. And, you know, that's usually if I go out of state and I don't kill something, I come back, it's on your mind for like a long time. What did I do wrong? How can I learn from it? So you're totally right. Take something positive out of it and try to learn from your experience and why you didn't kill. And like last year, you know, we went on our big trip last year and passed up some pretty decent bucks, but didn't kill. And that's just part of it. If you get your mindset on shooting a big one, you got to let the small ones walk sometimes. And it just happens, man. You eat a tag sandwich and come back the next year and try again.
I've eaten some tag sandwiches, and I'm sure everyone out there that's been hunting for a while, it's gonna happen. So
yeah,
no matter how much work you put into there, sometimes it just seems like, man, I can't believe I ate a tag sandwich. It sucks, but you gotta find some type of positive out of doing that, and just do better out of it.
Definitely.
Doozer, can we pull up PSE Mobile comment? I came across a cougar hunting up north 2 years ago. Holy shit. I have actually seen sightings of cougars up here in the UP in the northern part of Michigan. For anyone referencing, he is from Michigan. Totally scared the crap out of me, and a black bear cub climbed the tree next to me. I'm wondering where the mama was. I'd be shitting bricks.
Close. I've had it happen a lot. Bears, not cougars. We had lots of bears, tons of bears.
I know. I was talking to Cody from North Carolina, and it blew my mind of how many bears are there in North Carolina.
Yeah. Well, like where I live, it's ridiculous because most of our game lands are a bear sanctuary. And maybe back in the day they needed to, you know, increase the population or something. But now it's just honestly getting ridiculous. Like I have pieces of game lands that I can't hunt without seeing. I see more bears than I do deer a lot of time. And that's one thing, like if you are coming to North Carolina, there's a big difference when you get up high, when you get where all the deer and all the bear sign is. Look at the trails because there's a big difference in buck trails and bear trails. Not saying the bears won't walk the deer trails because they'll do that too. But what you're looking for, like for a deer trail, like if it's a side hill or a bench trail, a lot of times like with deer, you know, they have hoofs, so it's going to be more choppy. So you're looking for those trails where it's more choppy, kind of like, you know, you see their hoofs at a triangle, chopping leaves up. Bears have giant paws and they're heavy, so those trails are more flat, and you'll see the indentions where it's super flat. So there's a difference in bear and deer trails, but I always try to hunt the deer trails, but the bears use them all, so you got to do your best. Speaking of what the PSE hunter guy was saying, last year I was hunting some game lands, and I had just getting down. I lowered my bow, and my bow hit the ground. I hear coming. I'm like, oh, you know, I thought it was a deer. And I look up, and here comes a big black bear, and it's got 2 cubs. Well, I think she knew something was up, and the mama, she comes walking right at me, comes right to my bow. I'm freaking out. Like, I'm about to pull my bow back up because I think she's about to rip it apart. And as soon as she gets to my tree, she smells me and just goes, ooh, you know, that real loud huff. And as soon as she did that, her 2 cubs that were right beside me decided to climb the tree above me. Well, then Mama's like not leaving. So I'm sitting here trying to get out of the tree. She's freaking out, grabbing branches like little saplings and just shaking them. And she's going, ooh, ooh, ooh. And the cubs are eye level with me, like right there. It's kind of funny. They're just sitting there looking at me on the tree, just dangling there. And finally, I don't know what the mama did, but they finally climbed down and took off. But they were on for like 20 minutes. She just back and forth, just trying to freak me out, trying to figure out what I was. But, man, they're everywhere up here. They're just pests. I can't stand them. They're absolute pests.
I can't wait to get on my first bear hunt.
You can come kill some with me any day. I hate bears. Come kill some at my house.
I was talking to Brian from Idaho, and he all of a sudden he said, "I never hunted bear once a day but life before. I went and tried it a couple of years ago. Next thing I know, it's my favorite thing to do." Really? And he goes, "Yeah." And he loves, don't get me wrong, he's out in Idaho, so he gets to hunt all these, in my opinion, majestic creatures out there. And I'm like, I love whitetail deer. He's like, don't get me wrong, whitetail deer hunting is amazing, but once you try to hunt for black bear, it's gonna change you. I'm like, well, shit. Apparently, I need to start bear hunting more.
I think I'm just so used to them and see so many, I just hate them. But yeah, I can see where people would have fun with that, but not I.
Well, Brandon, we're getting close to towards the end of the show. I got 5 rapid fire questions here that I'll ask you. Okay. What is one state that you haven't hunted yet that you want to hunt?
Iowa, for sure. That's an easy one for me. And I screwed up this year. My buddy Josh hunts Iowa, and he was telling me to put in this year, and I was. My plans were, and I just never ended up putting in. But starting next year, I got a group of guys. We're all going to start putting in. So hopefully by the time I'm 40, I'll be able to at least hunt up there. But definitely Iowa. I want to go shoot one of those giants, man.
Yeah, it seems like that's where everyone wants to go. So don't get me wrong, I'm going somewhere else. Question. You know where I'm going to go. All right. You can't pick your state. What state would you want to move to solely for hunting?
I'll be honest, dude. I love Kentucky. I really do. I love Kentucky. They've got different types of terrain, like Eastern Kentucky is full of mountains. Western Kentucky is completely different, and they've got lots of game lands in between. The state itself is just beautiful, and they grow really big deer. So I'd say Kentucky.
That's a good one. I haven't heard anyone pick Kentucky yet.
Iowa or Illinois, but do what?
Those have been the typical answers. I haven't heard someone say Kentucky yet that I can remember. Question 3.
Yeah. Well,
what animal is on your bucket list to hunt, and with what weapon?
It was an elk, but I got that one last year. I'd say a bigger elk. Let's say that. So the elk I shot was not really that big. I mean, I'll take it all day for publicly my first bow kill. I'll say a big 300+ inch elk on public land with a bow. I think that's on my bucket list. That's what I want to do one day. I'm not big into like hunting moose. I don't know. I watch the videos on that, and they're not really scared of people. It seems somewhat.
So you're saying you wouldn't take a moose hunt?
I'd take, like, if somebody gave it to me, maybe, but I just don't have much interest in that. Like, I'm used to whitetail hunting. It's extremely hard. Their senses are awesome. The moose hunts I watch, it's like, I don't know. I wouldn't. I'm not. I mean, if somebody offered me a moose hunt, I'd go.
I was about to say that's a $50,000.
It was free, but they're super expensive. Like, I'm not trying to spend $1,000.
Yeah, that's a $50,000 trip. Here you go, Brandon. All paid free. Nah.
Oh, if they gave it to me for free, don't get me wrong, I'll be coming home with a moose all day long, but I'd rather go to Kansas or Iowa and shoot a giant whitetail myself.
Nah. Question 4.
That's just me, man.
You threw me for a loop there. All right. Question 4. Do you have any hunting superstitions? If so, what are they?
Not really. Superstitions. I don't know if this is considered a superstition or just me kind of being smart. And some people are probably going to comment, this is ridiculous and all, but like I retire all my broadheads the second I shoot a deer. So if I shoot a buck, that broadhead's retired. I just have got it in my head that there might be a little nick or a little something to where that broadhead's not going to perform perfectly. And as much money as we spend on all this stuff and on hunting, you know, why not go spend $15 more and go buy another or put a fresh broadhead on? So that might be a superstition, I guess. I always put a fresh broadhead on. I got a pile of retired broadheads if anybody wants them.
No, I think you get, like, for me, I'm attention to detail type of guy. I worry about that myself, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's just one thing. I don't know. I freak out. So I do that myself. Question 5 here. What is one thing that you can think of that we as a hunting community should or could do to help improve the hunting community as a whole?
I think getting kids involved at a young age is extremely important, because kids that don't grow up at it at a young age and like they see their first deer and they're in high school or something, it freaks them out. I mean, I know a lot of people that have never hunted before, and you show them pictures and they just don't get it. So getting kids involved at a young age, I think, is huge. I also think like being positive on social media is huge. Like, one thing I get so annoyed with, like if you go on Facebook or Instagram and they've got those pages like Deer Score and stuff like that, there's so many negative people on there making negative comments like, oh, you know, that's not even a 120-inch buck. Why are you shooting that kind of thing? And it's just, that negativity's got to go away. If we want to, you know, really have a positive hunting community, we need to be positive. Somebody puts up a 100 or a 90-inch buck, say congrats, man, because obviously he shot that deer for a reason. He put it on social media because he's proud of it. You know, give him a high five. Say good job. Don't be negative. There's way too many negative people out there now on social media, so I think that can go a long ways.
No, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for anyone out there that's, I guess, be nervous to post it on there because of that, send the photo to us and then we'll post it, and then they got to go through me before they get to you, because I think that's just stupid. Like I said before, you don't know that person's mentality or background when it comes to hunting. Like, that could be like his first one, or he's out there just solely forgetting for deer meat, or he went 3 years without seeing a deer at all, and he finally was able to get a deer. And like we said earlier and time again, deer hunting and archery hunting are so freaking complicated, and we make it seem like it's this easy thing. In reality, it's not. Like we said, you got to get this engineered deer within 40 yards at a minimum in most hunters' average distance for shooting. And then you got to avoid all their wind. You got to do all this stuff correctly, on top of make sure your arrow is knocked on correctly. It's on your rest. You don't mess up with your release. And even then, just drawing back, it could actually pop off your string. Your release might accidentally hit off, or when you shoot, it might accidentally go right underneath it. So many variables can go wrong. So for anyone out there that's not being supportive towards other hunters, I basically just, here's a giant middle finger for you. I don't care. How dare you try to discourage someone else that's proud of their deer? Like I said, giant middle finger right here for you. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. You know, even after the kill, think about, you know, they kill it, they gotta track it, they gotta gut it, they gotta clean it, they gotta quarter it for the most part. There's a lot to it, man.
Exactly. And they got to share that. They shared all that memories with their friends and family, like we said earlier. And now you're basically ruining that moment for them their entire life. Now you got that person scared to even want to post anything on social media about like, oh, I don't know, I'm just scared. Like, really? And like I said just a minute ago, you just ruined that guy or woman's moment with that deer. Now it's taunted with, oh, that was a great deer, but I just got so much backlash on the internet.
Yep.
Again, I'll throw 2 up. I don't care. Cancel culture. Fuck all that shit. I don't care anymore, man. I'm heated, and everyone's about to hear it here in a little bit. Anyways, Brandon, it's been awesome talking to you. It's been awesome talking to you in the meet and greet. We definitely have to stay in touch. Shoot me your number, because I'm gonna be a little drunk. Hey, can I get that number?
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, buddy.
Come my bears, man.
No, I definitely will. Don't tempt me.
Yeah, please.
Brandon, for anyone that wants to stay in touch with you or reach out to you and follow your journey on social media, how can they do so?
Let's see. They can get on Facebook, Brandon Sawyer on Facebook, Instagram. I think it's Sawyer BL 5989, or just type my name in, Brandon Sawyer. But I believe it's Sawyer BL 5989, but that's all I've got right now. I've got future plans to maybe film one day if I can get myself to do it, but as of right now, that's all I got.
Nice. Yeah, we just got some more filming equipment here to start self-filming this year, hopefully.
Oh, excellent. That's great.
Yeah. And like I said, I bought these Rode wireless things. I was going to start using them tonight, but apparently that was its own clusterfuck show that no one would go down. Anyways, Brandon, I just want to say thank you again so much for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate it. And I want to say thank you to everyone that's tuned in for tonight's show with Brandon. Brandon, we'll let you go. I hope you have a good rest of your night. And again, you're free to go, Brandon. You're free.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate everything. Enjoyed it.
Thanks, Brandon. Have a good night, man.
Yeah, man. You too.
Oh, man, what a great guy. I love talking to him. And like I said, when I was talking to him, because we like to meet everyone that's coming onto the show before the actual live show, and it was amazing talking with him. Johnny Night Show, awesome show. Thanks, Johnny. Can't wait to start having you on here for Roundabout Tables on Sundays, which we'll get into that, talking about in next week's episode or something like that. Anyways, I just want to say today, before we officially close out the show, our Whitetail Advantage Facebook page got a messenger from whatever Facebook thing, and it said basically one of our posts violated one of the policies, and our Facebook page is looking at permanently getting deleted if I don't submit a review. I call it extreme bullshit. I think it's Facebook is, and now the social media world that we live in now, it's ruining hunting communities as a whole now. And it's starting to really piss me off, because I remember a couple weeks ago, Jesse Anderson from Grizz Media, he posted a photo of him with his bow drawn back, and it got canceled from social media. It said withdrew. And I'm getting tired of this cancel culture and this fake woke bullshit world that we live in now is starting to piss me off. And you want to start calling me controversial and using someone else's intellectual property seriously? I don't play that type of shit. On top of, you have Kim Kardashian as a role model for these 12-year-old girls. And we live in this world now where everyone should be ashamed to be basically Americans. Well, all the true Americans, we're all ashamed of you that don't want to be American anymore. So basically you can get out of the country. I don't care anymore. We were at such a young age, we were taught how to walk and talk and stuff like that. But now we live in this world where they just want us to sit down and shut up. And for anyone that wants to speak out against this other side, the left side, they start to demonize you basically. And now it's getting worse. I'm getting tired of it. But again, I can go on even more, but I'm just going to leave it at that. With that being said, I just want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in for tonight's show. I greatly appreciate it. Today was Tuesday, September 17th. We'll be back on it on Thursday, September 19th, continuing in North Carolina. So I'm looking forward to that, learning more about it. With that being said, make sure you put your cord in the slot machine. Use code GP10 to get 10% discount off Gilly Puck products. Go check out MAGNUS Broadheads and Grizz Media. With that being said, Deucer, let's close it out for tonight.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we